and know like they must be talking about something important. So, it definitely goes hand in hand.
So, Keong, I'm just curious then. I know you mentioned, or Kyle mentioned, like you know people, right? And so, technology aside for just a moment, what kind of key characteristics are you looking for in the leaders that you end up, deciding to partner with, or deciding to invest in, both monetarily and just investing your time into these people? Are there kind of common characteristics that you see either from like the leadership perspective, or just like you said, the ability to communicate, etc.?
Oh, look, yeah, that's a great question, Beneath. I don't think I certainly wouldn't look at it from a point of view like, it needs to be like they need to be excellent communicators. I mean, they may not communicate very well. And oftentimes, researchers are generally quite introverted. And that's not you, Carl. You're a different guy, but as we know. But, generally, a lot of them are really introverted. How do you get them in a situation where they're comfortable to talk to an investor? And actually, I think people forget. I mean, they know I invest in stuff, but they forget, like, because we're just talking. I think what I'm trying to find in these people is I want to see the passion. I want to see, like, this is not just like research to get their PhD or for publish something. I can feel when they're just like, I've just been thinking about this. I've been researching for a long time, and I really want to get this out into the real world. Like, this is important. And I think once I get that sense, then we can have the discussion, and then it becomes more like a vibe thing. It's a chemistry thing and it's a people thing. I was actually, here's a good example. So where was I yesterday? I was in Knoxville. I was in Knoxville last night. And I got there because someone I knew, really senior guy at University of Sydney, a professor, he had this great additive manufacturing project. And I don't know if you guys have come across additive manufacturing on any of the episodes, but that's a thing. I'm trying to work it out myself, but that's a thing for sure. Just by the nature of it, there's something really cool there. I think it's about scaling and how to do that, but that's something I'm thinking about. And then he said, well, if you go to the States, Keon, why don't you go to Knoxville and go to Oak Ridge, the national lab? And I have no idea what you're talking about. I have zero clue. But of course, as you can tell, I just said yes. I turned up. And then I met the people there, and they were like, well, we've got the additive manufacturing stuff, but we've actually got lots of different projects, and university is quite large. University of Tennessee, they've got quite a material science thing going on there. I met a few people, and after I had dinner with a couple of their senior guys last night. I got a text. I got the phone number for one of the startups. He's just completing his PhD. Nice guy, really nice guy. I really like him. And he said, "Oh yeah." I said, "What are you guys doing tonight?" And they said, "Oh, we're going out." Cool. I finished dinner and we went out and we caught up. This big bar or pub or something. And basically a lot of the startup guys from the university were there. So they've already spun out their companies. They've raised quite a bit of OE money and DOD money, and they've got different projects and batteries and general material science. So they're the average age, 30, 35 in that zone. And they were all there. I didn't know that, but I knew that it was important for me to have these discussions. And, they were wondering, I think a few of them came up to me around midnight and they went like, Keon, like at that point, I was wearing a hat and just walking around talking to people. And the discussions we had last night was way better than any of the conversations we had in the boardroom with like the kind of the formality of it. They were very, very open with their issues in terms of the technical issues, their corporate issues, dealing with investors, how much it weighed on them, and it was just such a great environment to talk about that. And I got a real understanding of the people. And in the end, we come out in the morning, and I've got some texts and stuff, and it's not the emails anymore now. It's the texts, right? Emails are okay to do the formal stuff and the summarize project stuff maybe, but they're terrible for relationship, aren't they? They're just awful. When I've got that now, I think we trust each other now. I might not invest in their stuff, or they may. I think that's it's expanded the network again. And and they were saying to me, Keon, your whole relaxed approach to it all is so different from an investor thing, that they've ever seen before. And I said, well, I appreciate that, but the reality is that a lot of the investors in my world, we make decisions around beers and drinks. That's how we do things. It's not a movie. People perceive that it's kind of like this really structured situation. It's not. And so you've got this informality on the investor side, you've got informality on the research side. Why do we have to have this formal thing in between? When in the end, I think it's actually stopping the flow of real communication. That's, these type of things, I think it's important for me to give a little bit of insight into.
Yeah, you said you've been doing this for about 15 years now. And so I think it seems like you've learned a lot about how to build these relationships and cultivate these networks. And so maybe if someone is starting in this realm like 15 years ago, like what advice would you give yourself on like what you wish you would have done at the beginning?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's very difficult there. Like one thing I point out is that I understand that the age group of people that listen to this podcast. In fact, some of the guys at Uni Tennessee were saying, yeah, they listen to this. It was so cool. And they're like, oh, you're going on. That's awesome, man. Like, really? I said, yeah, I think so. But I was like, I think that it's the best relationships, really, and we all know this in our lives. I mean, you get business relationships and they can turn into very good relationships as well. But, when you grow up with a peer group of people and the only thing that you're interested in is your friendship because you like them, you talk about basketball, you just hang out, just talk crap and just do all this stuff, like they're real relationships. So and they withstand time. It doesn't matter what people are doing, it's irrelevant. And I think the best thing that happened for me was that it kind of touched on the early point was that I took the opportunity every time. to meet people. And it turns out that I've got such a good group of friends in Sydney, which is quite strange given I'm in Perth. And some of my friends are part of very large family offices that are very well known in Australia, But when I see them, yes, we work together, we got stuff together, we put the business thing aside, and we all know it can sometimes go wrong and sometimes it goes well, but we share the journey. But we are friends, And I think that if there's one thing I can tell people, if they want to get started, whether regardless of whether it's a researcher or investor or whatever, I think forming those networks as early as you can. And I think in university culture, you do it very well because it is already in the culture, go and have drinks and just hang out. And you don't have no ulterior motive, you just want to hang out because it's fun. And I think, isn't that awesome, right? So you kind of use that in way, like in your career, it could benefit you. But I think oftentimes those networks are the best. And that's what I would say.
I love that. So I have a question about networking. It's been such a key component of our podcast, but it's also been like pivotal for my job search a couple of years ago and beyond, right? And I'm an adamant like support, or like, I always say I think networking just continues will play a massive role regardless of where you're at in your career or your journey. But I want to see, how do you go about that? Because for a lot of people, it's not a formalized process, and I don't think it necessarily should be. But I just wanted to see, how do those relationships form in your life? Are they natural, or are there tools that you use, or like processes you go through to kind of build those relationships, or even like reach out to people for the first time?
Yeah, I think that I understand what you're trying to say. For people who are just starting out, is there things that they could do? Certainly things like conferences and that type of thing is a good way to do it. I think you'd be surprised if people actually stop and consider who they know that could help them go, find a different network. They'd actually be quite surprised. The world is quite a small place. I think those type of word of mouth, or those extension of current friendships is the best way. But where there's an opportunity to meet a whole different bunch of people, I think the research community, already has that in place largely. And I think, Carl, I listened to the podcast that you guys did on the conferences. I think that's a really, really good way to do it. It's very hard to formulate these things. I think that, again, if you go to a conference, you don't want to talk to anyone, that's also not going to be that helpful, right? So, you got to get yourself out there and take that risk, and then what's really the risk? What's the downside? You're going to meet a whole heap of people. Like, that's pretty cool, and sharing the common interest. But I think, guys, one of the other things, maybe I could ask you guys some questions. You guys know, we'll go down
for sure.
a little bit. How's that? We'll change it up. When you think of investors, right? I'm sure you guys have had ideas in the past and you've thought of different things. Like, how do you perceive the investment situation, and how do you even process that? And Carl, you can also want in that situation now with Maxine's. What do you think about investors generally? The whole process. What does that mean to you?
Well, I can say first that my preconceptions and my current understanding are different after, like having experiences like meeting you at GRC and, starting to talk more to people and even looking into it myself, which we can follow up with after. But like working with a material like Maxine, that's very interesting. There's all this talk. There's a company in Japan currently that licenses Maxine, Murata Manufacturing. So, working on a material that is at that, like, I would say cutting edge makes you think about it. And beforehand, I kind of saw investors as like far away in the distance kind of thing, like that someone else had to figure out, but it's not true. Like, you have to figure it out, actually, like how to explain to people who are interested in your research why your research applies to this situation. Like originally when I thought about it, it's more like, oh, like so many things have to happen before there'd be like, people interested in investing in like a materials technology. But now I see like, no, like it's actually the researchers that have to tell people about the materials technology. Otherwise, these investors are never going to find it. And then you have to like make that connection. At least that's how I see it.
Yeah, for sure. And just to add on to that, David and I last year attended the Puzzle X conference, and going into it, I imagined just, being able to network with a lot of other material science researchers, and meeting CEOs of materials companies. But I think something that was kind of unexpected for both David and I was the amount of investors that we talked to, or people that belong to VC firms. And they honestly, a lot of our like coolest conversations or most natural conversations came with these people who were just trying to learn about these technologies. They were very curious, didn't necessarily have the full technical experience, but that's what made them great conversationalists, right? They didn't really have like an agenda. You kind of, I guess the way I interpreted it was like, obviously they're working for a company that wants to invest in unicorns or even, like groundbreaking technologies just for the chance for it to blow up. But the way we had those conversations, it was very natural. And it was just like, just being able to share more about our experiences and learn about what their life was like as well, in terms of the traveling and the people that they get to chat with both at these conferences as well as, at dinners or bars, afterwards, similar to the experiences you're talking about. So right now it's just kind of connecting a lot of the dots for me. So that's kind of my perspective on investors now that we've had that Puzzle X conference. But David, I wanted to see if you had anything to add.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, and like Puneet says, that I feel like the relationship between the investor and the founder is extremely important for the growth of any company. And so I think we started to see glimpses of it through the people we've met, because it takes a strong technical founder, but also, like you said, Kyle, is that they have to get it out there. And so I think that's where a good relationship between the people who are help funding and getting your word out there with these connections that Kyung was talking about, and then the person trying to make it work. Not any one person can really do it all. And so I think that what we've seen is the most successful companies have the best relationships where they're able to trust the other person completely to help them reach the ultimate goal that they both believe in. So I think that a lot of companies that fail, the technology could be ahead of their time or could just not work. But a lot of the times it's that there's a breakdown and you can't either get more money or the technology isn't moving at the right pace. And just, I think that's why it's important to be able to understand where you are at the project and the needs. And that's why I think the connection between the two people in that relationship is the most important. And maybe you could say that is true or false, Kyung.
Well, look, I'm listening very, very intent, like very, very closely to you guys because you've seen so many. I'm trying to work through the podcast list and going, you've met so many researchers. I can't help but think, though, guys, like I think that the researchers probably need to be able to articulate what they're working on, but a bit better. I think that's obviously going to be helpful. But I also think it's a bit of. I think investors also need to change it up, and I think. Puneeth, like you mentioned, you guys, I don't know what the Puzzle X thing was about, but it sounds like it was like investors were expected to turn up, which is the reason why you guys turned up. I think that's great. That's a good first step, but I also think it's the investors need to do a bit more work, and I think that it's a big ask, to get researchers to that they're so busy to go to these events, to go pitch the thing. I mean, that it takes a certain type of person to even do that, and I think the people on this, for you guys, you're relatively experienced. You got a bit of not you're not extroverts, but what I'm trying to say, like you're quite comfortable taking the next step and reaching out, right? But a lot of people aren't, and I think that where there's a breakdown in the system, which I'm quite aware of it now, the university spin out ecosystem, is that there's a requirement for the researcher to disclose their invention to the university, and that creates a whole different headache for the researcher that they probably don't want to put up with. And I think I've heard that a million times. So probably got 80% of the. I'll just throw some numbers out there, but I think just to give you the idea, I reckon you've got 80% of the world's best ideas, not just in material science, but generally speaking, sitting in the labs in their minds because they just don't know how to spin it out or to form a company or to do something like that without having to go through the headache of dealing with all the stuff that university, all the processes at university. And it's not to say the university system's not right. It's actually required. It's very important to get that piece right. But I think the researcher and the teams, they need to understand and get that confidence from someone in the markets or the investors saying, yeah, I reckon it's a great idea. And then together going to universities, look, we want to do this. And I think the university would love that too, because then it becomes it's kind of like already halfway there, and they can do something with it and make really good use of time. So I'm trying to draw this picture of what I'm seeing, and I think this is right. I mean, you guys are better placed than me, but you guys are in that position now. You're in the right age group. You've got all the stuff going on. Your academics are and working in industry. Some of you guys, but I think that this is the kind of thing that's happening. And I think we need to do something about it. Like we need to take some steps towards helping this, break this down.
Yeah, for sure. And just this was something that came up when you were asking about the perspective of like a material scientist towards an investor. And it was something that I wanted to just hear your thoughts on. Because for me, whenever if I've ever had thoughts about starting up a company, and getting funding, raising funding, right? One of the potential concerns with that is like undue pressure or potentially unnecessary or unrealistic expectations from the stakeholder perspective on like the progress that we can make in a given time frame, right? Or just, that type of relationship. And so I just wanted to hear your thoughts. Maybe that's something that other researchers are facing as well if they're potentially concerned about starting a company. So I just wanted to give you the floor there to offer a counter perspective.
Yeah, I think like investors going, why is it taking so long? What's happening?
Exactly.
That
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a pretty common thing. I think the way I like to think about these things is I think it helps to have a 12-month time frame and to think about we're not talking about generating revenue here. We're talking about getting out of the lab. And Carl, we had this discussion a few days ago. It was really great for me too. I hope it helped you guys, but it really clarified in my mind what this is all about. This optimization phase. I think Carl, then we ended up with this language, kind of like words around this. An optimization phase. What does that mean? Get it out of the lab. It works really well in the lab. That's awesome. But now we got to scale it up, and it's going to be technically challenging because it probably involves some engineering things to think about, right? Which you don't have to think about in the lab. So we need us as investors and the researcher to agree in 12 months' time, and we've got X amount of money that we're going to raise to achieve this very important milestone. It's not revenue, just to reiterate, but wow, if we achieve this, whatever metrics we're trying to measure, and that happens, that's really cool. That hasn't been done before. That's the discussion. So if you have that understanding as well, I called up with one of the guys who had to spin out in Tennessee yesterday. And he was telling me this really funny thing, Puneeth. He was talking about some investors wanting like his EBITDA calculations and his cash flow forecast. And I'm like, what's that? What are you talking about? Like, why? You're a startup. Like, what revenue? Like, I said, look, man, like, I think, I don't know obviously I didn't want to know who the investors are. I probably wouldn't know who they are, but I'm thinking that's probably the wrong investor. I think you need to start looking somewhere else because any investor, and that's as a general comment for everyone listening to this thing, I think for the podcast, I think that the investor should well understand that this is early stage. It's really high risk. It's probably going to have a couple of pivots in between, right? Things that don't quite work out. But we're a team, right? We're forming a team. This is not put money in, I'll see you in 12 months' time, you're 5 times my money. This is like working together, and we share the risk and we share the reward, and we cut up the equity pie accordingly so that it reflects the risk taken by everyone at the time committed to it. I think if you can have that discussion in a really honest, transparent way, going back to what we just spoke about, having that relationship, just tell me what the problems are, guys. Like, tell me what the issues we might face, because we also are raising capital from other people. We need to be responsible in the sense of what the challenges are, and it's okay. It's okay to tell people that it's not all the lovely PowerPoint going to the right, up and right. We know it's not to the right. We get it, and the investors, our skill set, we should understand that. And if you come across people who can't, you just feel, man, these guys are putting so much pressure on me. Like I feel like, yeah, the money's there, but they're just trying to wrap everything up, and it's just the details. Like, I'm really uncomfortable about this. Don't do it. Don't do it. It's not the right project. It's not the right person. It's not the right dynamic. It should never be like that. It should be exciting. It should be really interesting. It's like, finally, someone said yes, and you wake up every day and you're just pumped to go and make the phone call. Hey, Keon, like, man, we did this yesterday. It works. Like, man, did you believe that? Bring, oh man, it didn't work. Like, we thought it was going to work. We didn't think, dang, we got to go back to the team, and it might delay things for another week, but I'll come back to you. I'll text you in 2 days' time. I'll let you know. That's what we want, right? That's a proper relationship, early stage.
So maybe as a question for you, for like more people who are interested in this investment role, what do you think like your primary role is once you invest the money in the company? Like, what's your job at that point for that company?
Yeah, for OTB Ventures, and at the end I'll give a summary. I'll give a why we came up with OTB. It's quite a funny story. I think our approach in our business model, David, is specific to us. We're not passive investors. We're active investors.